But me, you're me. Louie T, welcome to this LouieTeeNetwork exclusive limited series, The Reign of Terror. Chronicling the 23 years of pure hell that Daniel Snyder has put this fan base through. 2007 is where we find ourselves, and it is chapter 9. And for some, it is a wound that will never heal. It is one of those seasons that is etched in my memory bank. Even if I wanted to forget '07, I couldn't. It is the ultimate roller coaster as a fan. If you experience that season, if you can remember what that season was, what it felt like in the moment, going through each and every single week, especially after weeks 12 and 13 and what we went through as a fan base, as a family. I'm not really sure that there's another season that kind of compares to '07. And it was crazy because it was just this ebb and flow, the highs, the lows, the peaks, the valleys. And you end the season on this spectacular high note. And just like that, it's over. Everything's over. We'll get to that later on in the show. But let's first talk about what the feeling was like heading into '07. So you come off of this '06 season that was an absolute disaster, an abject failure. You're in year 2 of Al Saunders' offense, and Jason Campbell is going into year 2 as the starter. And so you're thinking things are probably going to settle in. This is his first real year as the starter, unquestioned, going into the season. Remember, last year he didn't start the season, but he did take over about 2/3 of the way through the season. And so it's his team. It's his football team. It's his offense, and he should be comfortable now. He's been in Al Saunders' offense now for 2 years. We got a healthy Clinton Portis. Remember, last year in the preseason in '06, and someone reminded me of this. I forgot to mention this. Clinton Portis injured himself after an interception in, I want to say, the first preseason game of the season. He was going to make a tackle on the intercepting player, and he dislocated his shoulder. Or they called it a sublux. That was the term that we talked about all season ad nauseum, a sublux. And what that means is your shoulder pops in and out of the socket. In and out of the socket. It is extremely painful. At any point, it could pop out. You pop it back in. It could pop back out. And so he just was dealing with that pain. It was a pain tolerance issue, really, for the majority of the season, until we got to a point where, all right, what are we doing here? We suck. We're not going anywhere. You're in pain. Let's call it a wrap. And so he was finally healthy. Washington made one of their best, if not their best, free agent signing during the Snyder era, which was signing London Fletcher going into the '07 season from Buffalo. And so that was a bright spot. They also drafted LaRon Landry in the first round. Remember, we didn't have many day 1 or 2 picks. All right, we didn't have another pick, I think, until like the 6th round, maybe. I mean, remember, I told you last year that we spent all these picks, to try TJ Duckett, a 2nd round pick, and you traded for this guy, you traded for that guy, and so we were giving up picks left and right. So we didn't have very many picks, but we still had our first rounder, fortunately, and we drafted LaRon Landry. And combining him with Sean Taylor, we dubbed them Area 51. And boy, was that going to be a vicious, flavor-delicious duo in that secondary for many years to come. You could see it. With that rookie season LaRon Landry turned in, oh my stars. That was going to be fun to watch. Area 51, obviously, LeBron was 30, Sean was 21. You put it together. Uh, it was a no-brainer, man. Anyway, so you're pretty much caught up on where we are. Joe's going into year 4 of a 5-year contract. And so we were looking for a bounce back. Last year was super disappointing. 2006, super disappointing. So you start off the season and we get the Dolphins at home. And in typical Joe fashion, as we had seen, 2 out of the first 3 years, you eke out a victory against the Miami Dolphins in overtime. 16-13, 19-16, 13-10. It was a 3-point game in typical Joe fashion, right? That's why 06 just felt off. Joe didn't win the first game of the season. He had done so in 04, 05, now again in 07. Similar to 05, we get off to a hot start. The following week, Philadelphia on a Monday night, we go to the link and we dispose of the Eagles. It was not pretty, but it was gritty, and most importantly, we got the dub. My highlight of that particular game was Sean Taylor hitting Reggie Brown on a shallow cross, or deep over, I should say an over route. And McNabb put it out in front of him, and Sean just leveled him. And after he was done, he went like this. He did a little dance like, nah, bro. You don't want this smoke. That kind of set the tone for the game. Cooley had a nice little touchdown right before the half, and we beat the Eagles 20-12. And that was a big win early in the season. It was a big win early in the season. So you go to 2-0. And now you got a big game against the Giants. You got a chance to bury. And this is the game that I talk about all the time with you guys. We had a chance to bury the Giants in 07. And you know what? In hindsight, I'm glad that we didn't. Because if we did bury the Giants, they don't make it all the way to the Super Bowl. They don't beat Dallas. Maybe Dallas makes it to the Super Bowl instead, which would have been unbearable. They don't beat the Patriots. Patriots probably go 18-0 and they're the greatest team in NFL history. And so all of those things may transpire. Dallas may make it to the Super Bowl. Dallas may win the Super Bowl. The Patriots may win the Super Bowl and go 18-0 if we beat the Giants in week 3. So as fate would have it, we didn't beat them. We didn't crush their windpipe. All right. And they go on to make the playoffs, beat Dallas, beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and prohibit the Patriots from becoming the greatest team in NFL history, and stop what would have probably been the greatest set of bragging rights known to mankind. So on one hand, you look at it that way and you say, hey, it was for a good cause. But on the other end, you're pissed because the Giants had come into the game at 0-2. Tom Coughlin was on his deathbed as a head coach in New York. They were calling for his head. They'd given up 80 points in the first 2 weeks. I've already told you guys this story. You gave up 45 to Green Bay in week 1, gave up 35 to Dallas in week 2. They were getting crushed the first 2 weeks of the season. Their defense was anemic. Couldn't stop a nosebleed. Tiki Barber had just retired, so they really didn't have any oomph in their backfield. Eli Manning was still trying to find his footing as an NFL quarterback. And so they were ripe for the taking. And we were up 17-3 at halftime. And I'll never forget the game because we had on our throwbacks with the yellow pants and the yellow helmets with the red R. And if not for dressing all black like the Omen, taking one on the chin, I would have had that on in honor, an ode to that week 3 get up. Unfortunately, We blew the lead. The Giants scored 21 unanswered points in the second half. But to make this loss even more painful, we get the ball and we drive it all the way down. Also, Fred Smoot was re-signed. In addition to London Fletcher coming on board, Fred Smoot was brought back onto the squad as well. I have to make note of that because he was huge. Because one of the issues we had the year prior was we had zero cornerback depth. Carlos Rogers got injured, and just like that, we went from okay depth to no depth whatsoever. So bringing Smoot back on board was huge. Drafting LaRon Landry was huge. Okay, so back to the Giants game. We get the football. We drive that puppy all the way down to the 1 yard line. Matter of fact, 1 or 2 yard line. I want to say Campbell hits Antoine Randall L. Like down to like the 2 yard line, 1 or 2 yard line. And for some inexplicable reason, I can't explain it. I don't know what Joe was thinking and why he decided to do this. Ladell Betts is in the game. We don't get in on first down. We don't get in on second down. And Ladell Betts is in on third down, and they run it. We don't get in. Joe calls his final timeout. It's 4th and goal from the 1. Clem Portis is still not in the game. Ladell Betts is in the game. And they hand it to Ladell Betts. There is a massive hole, and he trips over the blocker in front of him's leg and falls down, and the Giants secure the 24-17 victory. He gets over that leg. He walks into the end zone. We lose the game, and I just remember thinking, what the F? What a wasted opportunity. You're up 17-3 at the half. You can't close the show against a Giants team that they were well on their way to giving up another 30-plus point effort. We were halfway home at halftime and went to sleep. Giants get out of there with a win and save their season. And ultimately, as I just mentioned, go on to do very destructive things that ultimately kept the NFL ecosystem intact, if you will. So we're 2-1. We go into a bye week sulking after that. A ton of questions. Why wasn't Portis on the field? Come off the bye week and somebody had to catch this work. It just so happened to be the Detroit Lions. We were pissed. And the Lions came to town and got their asses whooped. 31-3, 34-3, 38-3, some shit like that. We bust their ass. It wasn't close. Sean had a pick in that game. Sean had a massive block on a James Thrash punt return that almost went to the crib. J-Cam had a really solid performance. Portis was really good in the game, and we destroyed the Lions. All right. Defense was outstanding. As a matter of fact, Carlos Rogers had a pick 6 at the very end of that game to put an exclamation point on it. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Good times. So you get that dub, and the next week was really, really frustrating. Because this whole season was all about Sean for me, you know. So the week 6 game against the Packers, very winnable football game. Nasty conditions. It's wet out. It's cold. It's Green Bay. You know what it is. You know the Stees. Sean has 2 picks in that game. And should have had about 12. I'm not bullshitting you. Sean Taylor could have had 6 picks in that game. And he didn't drop shit. It was just one of those days, man, where it was wet out. And for some reason, he wasn't locked in like he normally was. Because Brett Favre was throwing him up left and right. And Sean was baiting his ass. And he had him in his sights every single time. And for whatever reason, even the first pick he caught, he bobbled it. Barely got his feet down in bounds after corralling it the second time. Like, Sean just didn't have it for whatever reason in terms of catching the football. But With all that said, right there in the game, as a matter of fact, we got the lead. And we had some soul crushing turnovers. Santana had a big fumble that they scooped up and scored with. I think it was Charles Woodson that picked it up and scored with it. Clinton had a fumble. It was so frustrating. It really was. But it's one of those games as a Washington fan, you just learn to accept, like, all right, whatever. Like, I had never seen dominance before, so, the fondest memories I have of a dominant team was the 91 team, but I was too young to really, like, bask in the dominance. So I'd really never seen true dominance before, so games like that stop you from being a dominant football team. Because you got to find a way to go to Green Bay and win when Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre is playing that kind of trash. You got to find a way to win the game, and we didn't. You lose that game 17-14. Then you bounce back, you get a win, and you get to week 8 against the New England Patriots. It wasn't surprising that we got our asses handed to us. This was a good old-fashioned, passionate ass whooping and getting your shoes, coat, and your hat taken. All right. But the Patriots were doing that to everybody that year. So I wasn't offended. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't dismayed. Any of that. I just didn't want to get shut out. And thankful for Chris Cooley into the game, garbage time, catching a little out down by the end zone, and getting our only touchdown in the game to prevent us from losing 52-0. Patriots put an ass whooping of epic proportions on us. But as I mentioned, at the time we were watching the greatest offensive performance in NFL history take place. And really, they were a complete team. Defensively, they were dominant. Offensively, they were unstoppable. And so we were just another name on the list that they were checking off. So as far as I was concerned, for a lot of people, that was a debilitating loss. No, there were far worse losses to me than that one, because I expected to lose that game. Maybe not 52-7, but I expected to get our asses kicked. To what extent? Wasn't expecting quite that, but I can stomach that, being that was one of the greatest teams in NFL history to not win a Super Bowl. I can stomach that. It's the losses to teams like Buffalo, where you get blanked over in Canada, where you go, or the Giants with Eli Manning, who can barely complete a forward pass, yet you lose 36-0. It's those types of games where you get shut out that stick in my craw, because those aren't dominant teams. Those aren't some of the greatest teams we've ever seen. We just sucked ass. So it's a little different. There are far worse losses than that one. The Monday Night Massacre is pretty high. Swinging Gate is one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a Washington, Redskins team. So, yeah, this one, it's just, you just got your ass whooped. You ran into a buzzsaw. So you go the following week. I thought this was the biggest game of the season to that point. That following week, because when you get your ass whooped and a mud hole stomped in you the way that we did in week 8 at Foxborough, you can go into the tank at that point. We still had a winning record on the season. We were still a quality football team. You cannot afford to lose on the road at the Jets, who are at the time the worst team in football. You cannot afford to do that. So you got to figure out a way to get it done on the road and pick yourself up off the canvas and dust yourself off. And we went to New York and we tried to lose that football game. We were down 17-3 in that game. But CP wasn't having it. He willed us to a victory. 30 some odd carries, damn near 200 yards rushing. I just remember just keep feeding him, keep feeding him, keep feeding him. Sean Sweezum, who was our field goal kicker that year, was spectacular. He kept us in the ball game, including the game winner in overtime. And we barely escaped the Jets in the Meadowlands. 23-20 in OT. Sean Sweezum kicked, I believe, 4 field goals that day. He was spectacular. 4 or 5, maybe 6. Whatever it was, we don't win the game without Sean Sweezum. I think he might have kicked 6 field goals. Whatever the case may be, we survived that game, get to 5-3, and it was so necessary because we would then hit the skids after that. You're gonna lose 4 straight games. Typical Washington shit. We can't have nice things, right? Come on, man. So you go from 5-3 to 5-7, but let's talk about how we got there and the importance and significance of that stretch. So first game you lose in that stretch is to the Philadelphia Eagles. That is the game Sean Taylor gets hurt in. And unfortunately, that is the last time we would see him on the football field or alive. Gets hurt. It seems innocuous. Second quarter, kind of limps off the field. You're like, hey, I hope he comes back. He doesn't return. He strained something, I believe, a calf or something like that. So he's out for a couple weeks. We lose that game to the Eagles. Sure could have used Sean. There were some big plays that happened in that game. That we gave up. But the following week, you go to Dallas, you lose that game as well. Again, sure could have used Sean. And then you go to Tampa. And the only reason this game, again, it's Tampa. Anytime we play the Buccaneers, stupid shit happens, right? Right. So this is no different. Jeff Garcia is the starting quarterback at the time for the Buccaneers. And we get to him early, knock him out of the game. So I'm thinking, oh, shit, we got this one now. Bruce Gradikowski? Yeah, right. We saw him last year. He sucks. Even though they beat us, he sucks ass. That's why they went and got Jeff Garcia. We got this one in the bag. Not exactly. It was one of the most self-destructing performances I think I've ever seen from a Washington team. It ranks up there. It's pretty high. If it's not number one, it's up there with Patrick Ramsey's first start against the New Orleans Saints. It's pretty damn close. The Ramsey one is probably worse because that one actually happened at home. You can understand an avalanche and a slew of errors on the road. The crowd gets involved, and it's like this avalanche of, and comedy of errors, and then shit just continues to just go downhill, and the crowd gets on you, and it just snowballs. You can see how that could happen. When you're at home, the crowd is supposed to help you stop the bleeding, and we didn't against the Saints in Patrick Ramsey's first start back in 2003. So, or 2002 was his first season. So, no. I don't think this one is at the top, but boy, it's damn close. 6 turnovers in a game, 4 fumbles in the first quarter, leading to 17, 19 Buccaneer points. What? If not for the defense being really good, we would have lost that game 8-3, right? But the defense kept us in the game, and it gave us a chance to rally. We cut it to 19-13. J-Cam rallied us back. We get all the way down the field, and of course, when you turn it over 6 times in a game, are you going to finish the game with a comeback and win with 5 turnovers? No. You're going to turn it over one final time and make it 6 A nice half dozen, a 6-pack, and you take your ass home with an L. He's got a receiver open back of the corner. I want to say it's Santana Moss, but he doesn't put enough air on the football. It gets picked off by the cornerback for the Bucks in the end zone. Would have been the game tying score, extra point pending. You take the lead and you win, and you still won. Instead, it's picked off by the Bucks, and they preserve the victory, 19-13. And boy, that one stung. Typical Tampa shit, right? Like every time we see these bastards, it's always some dramatics. So that was the game, and then that was the week that Sean gets shot. And I'm not sure if it's that same night into the next morning or the next day, but it was pretty close after that game, it felt like. Because there was a real big debate on whether Washington should play the game or not against Buffalo that Sunday. But we all know the story. House gets broken into. 4 dudes don't think he's going to be home. And I mean, how stupid do they have to be to not follow, football? Like, if you trying to rob somebody's house, at least do your homework. You know what I'm saying? Like, they clearly were kids, which they were, but they were dum-dums too. Like, they weren't smart criminals because they didn't do their homework. All they had to do was a simple check, and they would have known that he was injured and there's a chance he could be home. They obviously didn't scope out the spot, because they would have seen movement in the house. They just went in. They just went in like some savages. And then Sean, protecting at the time, he was on probation, could not have a firearm in the house. And we all know he had legal issues in the past. All he had was a machete. But, you got your 2-year-old in the house. You got your, fiance in the house. And he did what any man would do. He protected his family, and unfortunately, he lost his life in the process of doing that. I remember finding out, and if I didn't say this at the beginning of the episode, bear with me, this is going to be a long episode. I should have said that at the top. If I didn't, I'm warning you now. I was a student at Old Dominion University at the time. And I remember getting the news and just feeling like somebody had just sucked the life out of me. And I remember just being feeling like it was the Twilight Zone. Like, this isn't real. They're right. And then just following the coverage and hoping that they would tell me he's stabilized, he's going to be fine. And you go to sleep that night and they're saying he's going to make it. He's going to be all right. He was airlifted to the hospital. They've done this, they've done that, and he's looks like he's going to pull through. That's the feeling that we were getting. That's kind of the word that was starting to come out as I closed my eyes. I woke up the next morning and Sean was gone. And I remember fighting the tears back, wanting to cry, but it was like, nah, I can't let myself cry. I got classes that day, so I go to school and I lose it on campus. I'm just sitting there thinking about it was crazy because Sean had a 2-year-old. I had a 2-year-old. So it was like a parallel there. And I could feel like, damn, what if that was me? You know what I mean? Like, his daughter will never know him. Like, she will only know him through stories of others, pictures. She'll never actually know her dad. And I remember that hit me like a ton of bricks. That shit hit me hard. So, you know, it was like this surreal situation. There's no blueprint for this. No other team had ever gone through anything quite like this before. It's rare to have death in season. Maybe the Eagles had it with Jerome Brown, and I'm not sure if he died in season or not. I don't quite remember when he got into the accident and passed away, if that was in season or before the season. But it's rare that you have a death like that in season. And so they decided to play the game. And the NFL, put 21 decals on all the helmets around the league. There was a moment of silence. We got the Buffalo Bills. Never have I ever in my life wanted to win a game more than I wanted to win that Week 13 game against the Buffalo Bills. Never in my life. And typical Washington Redskins shit. You got the 21 towels. I bought 2 of those joints. Got the 21 towels. You got the moment of silence. You got Coach Gibbs speaking, Santana speaking, Clinton speaking before the game. And this thing is amped, man. I got goosebumps. My eyes are welling up. We get on defense. We start the game with 10 defenders. Bitch-ass Bills decide to run a counter, essentially, to the left. Fred Jackson gets 22 yards, gets pushed out of bounds. And I'm like, you couldn't have taken a knee. You couldn't have thrown an incomplete pass. Okay. Let's beat the brakes off these bitches. All right? So Reed Dowdy comes in, and he was huge in that 07 season. All right, he came in and played his ass off, did Reed Dowdy. And Andre Carter gets a safety. Clinton scores a touchdown. We jump these boys. It's like 9-0. I'm thinking we about to blow these boys out. It's like 16. I think it ended up being like 16-3 or something like that. We had these boys. Whatever. I can't, it was 16 to something. And we just couldn't put them away. We had opportunities. He just wouldn't put them away. And they hung around. And it's 16-14 when they're driving. And they need, I think Trent Edwards is their quarterback. Trent fucking Edwards sucks. And we let Trent Edwards, they need a good 50 yards, it felt like 50 yards to get in the field goal range. And it had to be a 2nd and 8. And we let Trent Edwards complete a pass for 35 yards over the middle of the field. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? And they didn't have any timeouts. So I'm like, how? So they go to kick a 51-yard field goal. from Ryan Lindell. And he drills it, but Joe called timeout. So I'm like, thank God, Joe. I'm like, all right, he gonna miss this one. This is storybook. This can't end any other way. This is Hollywood shit. Joe calls the timeout, saves us. He misses the second kick, and we win this damn game. Nah, we don't get the we the Redskins, man. We don't get the Hollywood storybook ending, right? Joe lost it. I don't know if he didn't know the rules. I don't know if he had a brain fart. I don't know what the hell happened. Joe calls the second time out in a row. You can't do that. This isn't basketball. And so that's unsportsmanlike conduct. It moves the field goal up 15 yards from a 51-yarder to a 36-yarder. He had already made it from 51, so there's no telling if he would have made it again. He probably would have, but 51 is a lot tougher than 36. He punches the 36-yarder through. They beat us 17-16, and I don't know if I was ever more dejected in a regular season game and feeling empty as a fan than after that loss to the Bills. I sat Indian style in front of the television for probably 30 minutes after the game was over in disbelief. Couldn't believe Joe called 2 timeouts in a row. Couldn't believe that we couldn't put the hapless Buffalo Bills away. Couldn't believe that in a game to honor Sean, we couldn't honor Sean with a win. I couldn't believe that we would blow an opportunity to win the game that you can poll fans. Name the number 1 regular season game you wanted to win that year. That's the one. And we blew it. Just beat the Bills. Win this game. At that point, season's done in my mind. Sean's gone. We just lost to the Bills. Just cancel the season, man. F it. Yeah, they have the funeral. Quick turnaround. We got a Thursday night game against the Bears. I was as disinterested as I've ever been in watching a Washington game in which we mathematically are not eliminated, nothing. Like, there's been some week 17 games where the season's been long over and you're like, man, F that game. But I've never felt that way about a week 14 game where you're still in it. Mathematically, you're not eliminated from anything. And especially with Joe Gibbs as the coach. Are you kidding me? I didn't have it in me. Emotionally, I was spent. Then J Cam gets hurt early in that game against the Bears. And I'm like, man, what else can go wrong, man? Like, seriously. What are we supposed to do with Todd Collins at quarterback? This is a joke. That was the best thing that could happen to us. Todd Collins came in and started throwing BBs. Todd Collins came in cool, calm, and collected like the veteran backup quarterback he was. Todd Collins came in and blessed 4 straight opponents and played some of the best football in that stretch that I've ever seen a Washington quarterback play. You couldn't really play quarterback much better. And Todd, we all know, had a pop gun arm. All right? Todd was lofting them bad boys up there. He had no sauce on it whatsoever. But Todd knew where to go with it. He knew how to anticipate. And he threw a very catchable football. And guys were making plays. And they were letting it rip with Todd. These weren't some dink and dunkers. Todd was throwing that shit 20, 25, 30 yards down the field. And all of a sudden, this offense came alive. We beat the Bears on a short week after Sean's funeral. And it kicked off something that I didn't see coming. I'm not going to even sit here in front like I thought we were about to go on this run like 05. Didn't see it coming. It set off a chain of events that would lead this team into one of the most improbable runs that we've ever had. Now, it didn't go very far in terms of the playoffs once we got in there, but after that low, and you can't get much lower than the Buffalo game, after Sean's death and then losing that next game, the subsequent game after that, you can't get much lower as a fan. Not too long ago, you were just riding high, starting the season off 3-1, destroying the Detroit Lions 34-3, 38-3, 31-3, whatever it was. And just a month and a half later, you're mourning the death of a teammate. As fans, we're mourning the death of one of our favorite players, a budding star in the league. And then all you're asking for as a fan, win this game, and we lose in the most painful fashion known to mankind. Only can happen to the Washington Redskins, by the way. That you get your heart ripped out of your chest in that fashion. And now here we are trying to resurrect ourselves from the dead. Beat the Bears. The next game is a Sunday nighter at the Giants. The Giants are playing great football. Ultimately, the Cowboys would win the division, be the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Giants would be like the 5 seed and make it all the way to the Super Bowl and win it. And Washington would ultimately make the playoffs as the 6th seed. So 3 out of the 4 teams made it to the playoffs in 2007 from the NFC East. So the Giants are playing outstanding football. We go to the Meadowlands on a Sunday night, cold temperatures, very windy. Todd Collins making his first start in the NFL since 1997. Man hadn't started in over a decade. And this was some typical classic Joe Gibbs shit. Just like he would back in 1.0 version. He went on the road to the Meadowlands on a Sunday night and did those boys. Todd Collins was outstanding. Santana Moss was outstanding. And we go into the and we didn't just win, we dominated the Giants. That shit wasn't even close. No competition. So no contest. Beat the brakes off those boys. Felt damn good too doing it. Now you're back to 500 at 7-7. Still got to win the final 2 games of the season to get in. But if you do that, you're in. Next up, Minnesota Vikings. And the NFL said, hey, I see your little 2-game winning streak. 7-7 on the season. Playing a lot better ball behind Todd Collins. I see these Vikings over here riding a 5-game heater. Hottest team in the NFL. Not named the New England Patriots. I see what y'all over here doing. All right. Tell you what, you trying to get into the playoffs, let's put you on Sunday Night Football. So for the 2nd week in a row, this rarely happens. We pack our shit up, we go on the road on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks in a row. Now we're in the Metrodome, taking on the Vikings. This is Adrian Peterson's rookie season. They got Tavares Jackson back there. They playing ball, man. We go in there, Fred Smoot gets a pick early in the game, and we go over there and we spank that ass. Spank it. Good. Clinton puts the exclamation point on them late in the game. We were up at 1 point 25-0, I think it was. I mean, we were killing these boys. Saucing them up. They made a little run. Made shit interesting, and then Clinton was like, all right, man. Let's slam the door on these boys. And we put them away. And now you're 8-7. You've won 3 in a row. We've been dominant in pretty much all 3 contests. The last 2 in particular on the road on Sunday Night Football, no less. Now you go home, week 17, win and you're in. Dallas doesn't need the game. They're 13-2. They've already clinched not only the NFC East, but the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. They've already got a first round bye. They don't need the game. Good. So what does Joe do? He proceeds to kick their ass. Hey, Jay Gruden, take notes. This is what you do at the crib with a team that doesn't need the game. They're already in the playoffs. You don't play with your food. You eat that shit up and devour it like that. We jumped those boys early. We jumped those boys often, put them away, and get the 27-6 victory that clinched the playoff berth. Dominated them like we were supposed to. They were playing backups. We're in. Improbable run complete. We're in the playoffs. Off to Seattle. Our old nemesis. Anytime we make the playoffs, we got to find Seattle, right? What a frustrating game that was. Todd Collins played his ass off in that game. And we had so many injuries to the offensive line. It wasn't even funny. And yet somehow Clinton Portis was back over 1,200 yards rushing that year. Yeah, the average wasn't great, but who cares? You know, I think he had 10 or 11 touchdowns rushing that year. Todd Collins was killing it. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, crushing teams. He's got time in the pocket somehow, some way. I mean, Randy Thomas was down for the year. John Jansen got hurt. I think week 1 or week 2 of the season, was gone for the year. We done went through like 3 different offensive linemen, 2 different tackles. We on rookie Stephon Hire at right tackle. Yeah, it wasn't good times. All right. We got what's the name of the damn guard? We got him from the Jets, I think. Can't even think of his damn name, man. His ass is at guard because Randy Thomas is out. And somehow this patchwork line was doing the trick. Well, that magic dust ran out in the playoffs because Todd Collins was under siege. Patrick Kearney went to the Pro Bowl that year. And, you know, a lot of people remember him from the Falcons. He was a damn good defensive end. He killed us in that playoff game. He was everywhere. But I remember that game more so because there was this small period of this game where I said, Sean is smiling down on us. And he's not going to let us lose this game. And we about to win. And first of all, Todd Collins, I got to say this again. He played his ass off. He did not get the help. The only guy that showed up there with a mentality of, I'm going to do whatever it takes. We going to win this game. I'm not dropping shit. And was Antoine Randall, who had a really good season, a really good bounce back year. His first year in Washington, not all that impressive. I think as fans, we realized we weren't getting shit out of him as a returner. But as a receiver, he was really good in that 07 season. He was really, really good. And he was damn good in that playoff game. He was exceptional. So you get to your big guys, your Coolies and your Santana Moss. Santana had a big drop on a 3rd down. Cooley had the biggest drop of the game. He had 2 drops, but the biggest drop of the game. We'll get to that a little bit later. The pressure, you know, we caught a break. We're down in this game 10-0, and they hit Todd Collins. Patrick Kearney hits Todd Collins, and he fumbles. They called it a fumble originally. Washington challenges, and they overturn it and say it was incomplete. His ass fumbled that damn football. His arm was not going forward. That was a fumble, and we caught a break. They would have scored another touchdown. They would have went up 16 or 17-0, and the game would have been over. Instead, we caught a break. I think we picked up a first down. Then we punted and flipped the field position, and we hung in. And it was 13-0 in the third quarter, late stages of the third quarter. And then Chris Cooley comes alive. He had a drop early in the game, and he comes alive on this drive. Catches a one-hander on a corner route that kind of jump starts the offense, gives us a little life. Had another nice catch on that drive. And Antoine Randall had some catches, and we matriculating this thing down the field. Joe had already gone for it on fourth down once before. We came up short. And so we were being aggressive. And we move it all the way down the field. We get in the end zone. It was a great play by Todd Collins to find Antoine Randall. He buys time. Randall comes back underneath, and he finds him on a little whip route type concept, and he sneaks in the end zone, and we're on the board. It's 13-7. So LaRon Landry, who was spectacular that season, spectacular in his rookie season. I would have loved to see. Just give me 3 years of him and Sean together. I'm telling you. All pro for Sean, Pro Bowls and more for LaRon. Like, those two playing off of one another. Are you kidding me? What? It would have been crazy. LaRon is playing free safety now. They moved him from strong safety to free safety after the death of Sean Taylor. They needed that speed and that range. And LaRon, he was very... he was ready for the opportunity, and he relished in that role. And he picks off Matt Hasselbeck, reads his eyes, comes downhill, picks it off, gave us great field position, and we didn't waste any time. We go play action fake to Santana, cross the field, Todd with a bullet, touchdown, just like that. You go from trailing 13-0 late stages of the third to 14-13. You take the lead early stages of the fourth. The ensuing kickoff, we kick that bitch off. It's windy as hell in Seattle, as you would imagine. The ball dies at around the 12-yard line, the ball dies at around like the 17-yard line, and it kicks back. So I lied. It died at probably like the 22-yard line. It kicks back when it hits, and it bounces right past Nate Burleson, the return man for the Seahawks. And Anthony Nix, a wide receiver on special teams for Washington, retrieves the football. It's a perfect bounce. And it sucks because he walks that puppy into the end zone for a touchdown. But, of course, you can't advance a muffed kick of any kind. Punts, kickoff, none of that. You can't advance it, which is a dumb rule, to be honest. But whatever. So we get the football, and this is the knockout blow. 10 minutes to go, 12 minutes or so to go, fourth quarter. You got all the momentum. They were up 13-0. You scored 14 unanswered. You got the football, 1st and 10 at the Seahawks 18-yard line. You're ready to go for the jugular. First play, corner route, a bench route to Chris Cooley. Matter of fact, we were at the Seahawks 12-yard line, 12 or 14-yard line. First play, bench route to Chris Cooley. Like I told you, Todd Collins was feeling it. Throws a dart to Chris Cooley. He drops it. Cooley catches this shit 9 times out of 10. That was the one time he dropped it. Would have put the ball down at the 2-yard line. We're scoring. They're not stopping Clinton Portis from getting in at 2 yards out. They're not doing it. You score a touchdown there. You go up 21-13. You go up 8. You put all the pressure on them. You got all the momentum. And the way the defense was playing, the ensuing possession, LaRon Landry gets his second pick of the game. We would have won the game. For the second time in a row in the playoffs, playing against Seattle, An opportunity missed. Rodgers drops the pick six in '05 that would have put us up 10-0. I think we win that game. Cooley drops an easy catch down at the 2-yard line, would have put us first and goal at the 2 with a chance to take a commanding 21-13 lead with less than 10 minutes to go in the ball game. Steady drops it. I think you get a false start thereafter. And then you settle for a 30-yard field goal, and Sean Sweezum misses. And that's where the game flipped. It changed. Even though we ended up getting an interception from LaRon Landry after that, the game flipped after that. We lost all momentum. They were able to then flip field position on that pick that LaRon Landry got. It was damn near like a punt. It was all the way back in our own territory. They pinned us back deep. End up punting the ball. We didn't get a good kickoff. The wind killed it. They get great field position. Hasselback ends up throwing a touchdown pass. They take the lead. And then we just unraveled after that. They go for 2. They get it. They go up 21-14. And we just unraveled after that. We had our chance. We had our chance. It was there for the taking, and we didn't want it. And, 2 pick sixes by Todd Collins. So you go look at his stats, and you say, Todd Collins had an excellent game. What? He threw 2 picks. Both of them went to the crib. What are you talking about? Watch the damn game. Okay? Just watch the damn game. Don't watch the game, and then you come back and tell me Todd Collins wasn't out there balling, and he didn't give us a shot. And everybody around him failed him for the most part. The offensive line was horrendous. Outside of Chris Samuels, the offensive line was dog shit that day. Liddell Betts got blown up on a blitz by Julian Peterson. I remember that. Todd is just standing in there. There was a play where Santana Moss is wide open for a touchdown. And Todd Collins, as he's going to throw it, gets drilled. Interior pressure. And that ball ends up 6 yards short of Santana Moss, who's wide open behind the defense by like 7 yards. Ball dies in front of him by about 3 or 4 yards because Collins couldn't get anything on it because he got walloped. The play where he fumbles, where they called it incomplete pass, where he really did fumble, Chris Cooley's wide open on a corner route that he's about to hit him on. Protection was garbage. Drop passes all over the place. Santana had a big drop on the 3rd down. He had a big catch late in the game to keep the game alive at the time, but that drop was huge early in that ball game. Cooley had 2 drops, but as I mentioned, that drop after the kickoff that we recovered, gotta have it. Can't have a drop there. Got to have that catch. We let him down. We let Todd Collins down. He should have won that game. But even after that, even after losing that game 35-14, even after the grief of losing Sean and what a trying season it was, Joe just did that shit again. I'm getting '05 vibes all over again. Like, yo, J Cam was not bad throughout the regular season. Get him back next year. Bring these cast of characters back. This Al Saunders offense is starting to really regulate now. Like, they starting to really get a hang of this. We got talent now on offense. Hey, this shit can work. The defense is getting back to where they were. You're going to get Carlos Rogers back healthy. I think, you're going to get Carlos Rogers back healthy next year. You got Fred Smoot back. You got Sean Springs still playing at a relatively high level. LaRon Landry is coming off of a Pro Bowl season as a Pro Bowl alternate. Like, Reed Doughty played exceptionally well, being pressed into action. London Fletcher is here. You still got the core group of guys, Phillip Daniels and Andre Carter and, Marcus Washington. Like, it's all here. Sean Sweezum, he missed a kick in this game, but You know, as long as it ain't 50 yards, I like Sean Sweezum right now. Like, I was feeling Sean. Even though I was really disappointed he missed the 30-yarder. It was windy, and I knew that. I'm like, yo, you got Mike Sellers, Rock Cartwright, Liddell Betts, like, James Thrash. Like, this is a quality football team. Run it back. And Joe said, "No, I'm good, man. I can't. I can't do it. I don't have nothing left to give, man. I would love to run it back. I am emotionally spent. I don't have it, man." And we all know how much Joe pours into this thing, man. When Joe is your coach, Joe's giving you everything he's got. But this ain't 42-year-old Joe Gibbs. This 62-year-old Joe Gibbs. I don't have it, bro. I wish I did. I don't got it, man. Sean's death took me out. My hands are up, man. They got me. I'm out. And with that, it was over. Sean's life was over. Gibbs 2.0 was over. And as far as I was concerned, any hope, real hope of bringing a Lombardi back to Washington was over. Shit was over. And it was probably the perfect, most fitting end to what was a tumultuous, mentally draining, eventful, and just ultimate roller coaster ride of a season. You start this with this ridiculous high. You're 3-1. You destroy the Detroit Lions. You're feeling good. All smiles. You get your brains blown out 52-7. So you hit a semi-low. But then you really hit like that valley, that as low as you can go with the death of Sean Taylor. And just when you didn't think you could go any lower, the loss to Buffalo was soul crushing. And you think the season's over at that point. I was done. I was like, just cancel the rest of the season, man. I was done. Emotionally, I was spent at that moment. Then J-Cam gets hurt, and I'm like, man, look, what else can go wrong, man? You gonna take Clinton from us next? Santana, Cooley, what? What you gonna do? You already took half of our offensive line. What you want to do? You take the quarterback now too? Like, what are we doing now? You took our safety? And then Collins comes in, resurrects the season, takes us to the playoffs, and all of a sudden we got renewed hope and restored faith in Joe. Not that we ever lost it, but that 2 timeouts back to back, that shit hurt. But we would never turn on Joe. But now we like, yo, Joe got this ship righted again, man. Here we go. 08 Birdman hand rub. Here we go. And Joe says, nah. Damn, I would love to do it with y'all, man. Can't do it. And it's like somebody just took, like, I felt like it was like a Street Fighter fist and the shit was glowing. Like somebody took their fist and they took the glove on their fist and they tied it on real tight and it started to go, you got that glow. You feel as though you can't let go. Your mind and soul, you lose control. And then he just balled it up as it glowed and he just... That's what Joe announcing he was done felt like. After all we had gone through. Joe was like, I ain't got it, man. That was the exclamation point on the craziest roller coaster ride you could imagine as a fan. If you didn't experience it, You didn't miss anything. I'll tell you that, because it wasn't fun to go through until the end, and then right after it, you had your legs taken from under you immediately. So it didn't really, you didn't get to really fully enjoy, even losing in the playoff game, feeling like, hey man, look out for us next year, because Joe was gone, and now you're starting all over again. And then what would ensue thereafter is just pure comedy. It's typical Redskins shit. God, I hate Dan Snyder. Man, Chapter 9 was a doozy. That's the '07 season, folks. I'll leave you there. We'll pick up tomorrow, Chapter 10, 2008. Shit's about to get good. Not in a good way either. Or maybe I should have said bad. Not bad meaning bad. Definitely not bad meaning good. But bad meaning horrible. Anyway, it's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on The Reign of Terror, chronicling the 23 years of pure hell that Daniel Snyder has put this franchise through. I'm your man Louie T. Till next time, you guys, have a good one. 21. Rest in peace.
LouieTeeNetwork.